measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer.
Are you longing to taste authentic, flavorful dishes from Thailand? Then look no further. Konthai, the newest restaurant located at the back of Galleria Mall top floor, is the place to satisfy your taste buds for Thai dishes that are well seasoned with fresh local spices. They offer a great selection of sumptuous dishes that will tantalize your taste buds. Visit Konthai today because the food is good, the ambiance is great, and the staff friendly. Available on Bites and Yogo Grenada. For more information, call 456-0074 or visit konthaigrenada.com or stop by the new Galleria Mall, Grand Anse St. George. I'll meet you there.
No, that's not how you cross the pedestrian crossing.
Really? One day I just woke up and I saw pedestrian crosswalks on the road. No one really showed me how to use them properly.
Well, this is how it's done. You never cross before doing these things. They might save your life. First, when you get to the crosswalk, you stop. You look left, you look right. If there's a vehicle coming, you put your hand out, making eye contact with the driver, indicating that you want to cross. And only when the vehicle comes to a complete stop, you quickly cross to the other side.
Stop, look, hand out, eye contact. Wait for pedestrian to cross to the other side, then you happily continue on your journey. This message is brought to you by this group of insurance companies, the Traffic Advisory Body, and the Traffic Department.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
Hey GBN family, we've got a brand new home on Facebook and you need to be there. Follow us now on Facebook at Grenada Broadcasting Network -GBN. Stay updated with the latest news, sports, entertainment, and everything Grenada. Don't miss out. Like, follow, and share. Grenada Broadcasting Network. Stay informed, stay ahead. First with the news, fast with the updates.
Yo, Shaggy, one up every time. Grenada, GBN, salute.
Select a play the big tune ya for me. Right back till the morning. Hey, turn up the music, make it rock and come in. Right back till the morning. Well, crowd of people follow the place and sound string up na the lawn. Dance catch a fire when the big tune turn on.
Good evening once again and welcome to another Doctor on Call. Yes, indeed, it's Tuesday evening and of course our live program continues. Dr. Nixon is with us as always, and of course this evening we continue our discussion on men's health. Now the month of June, men's health awareness, all right? And so we'll be focusing quite a bit on that. Last week we looked at adolescent men. Yeah, and this week we would continue, of course, moving the age up a little bit. All right, and there's so much we need to talk about. But first, we welcome all our viewers on GBN Television 711, our friends on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and of course our listeners on K105 FM. We welcome you, and of course we look forward to your participation in the program as well. So it's a good time to welcome Doc. Doc, good evening. How are you?
Good evening. I'm fine and happy that rain is falling.
Well, of course.
Where I live, it rains. I have people who say otherwise.
Good showers of blessing. So it is a good thing. It is a good thing. Yes, indeed. So, Doc, last week we started our conversation on men's health. We looked at adolescent men. Quite a number of things we looked at. And this evening we want to take the age up a bit. You know, although it is said that age is just a number, but of course we're going to take it up. And I want to start, Doc. In fact, today I was doing some reading, looking through some things on men's health, and I came across a short video. It was a presentation by one Dr. David Thiel, and it was very interesting what he had to say, and I just want to share it because I think it's a good basis for our discussion, to start our discussion. And he said, the biggest men's health issue that men should be aware of is that they just don't go to the doctor enough, or they go too late. Most don't go to the doctors until something is wrong. And I tend to agree with the doctor there. In fact, I think this is something we've echoed on this program on numerous occasions. In fact, we believe that women do a much better job when it comes to that than men. And I've heard you before, Doc, many times encourage the women to accompany the men to the doctors. In fact, take them to the doctor, because men's ego is such that they would just stick around and, oh man, it's just a headache or just a little some gas or just something, until they realize, as our folks say, flour more than water, or water more than... Oh, how it goes, Doc?
Water more than flour.
Water more than flour. And then sometimes, in a lot of cases, it's too late. So, we need to echo that. Men, we need to do better than that, because we have a very important role to play. And if we need to keep, the male gender going, then we must have good health. So, Doc, I don't think you would disagree.
No, I have no reason to disagree. Well, first of all, let me have some manners and say good evening to everyone.
Yes.
Everyone who is watching us and joining us faithfully, and to my senior friends in particular who called me out in the street and make me feel like a little girl. It is the most wonderful thing that how seniors could compel your respect, okay? But thank you very much. It reminds me of my responsibility to make sure that this is fulfilling to everyone who listens.
Indeed.
Or who watches. So good evening, and it's June again, another week in June, and we're looking at men's health. So last week, we kind of looked at men, and we looked at boys and adolescents, and I think taking it up to like 20, and I'll stretch it to like 25. By that age, we're in or out of college, working and responsible, and there are other facets in life that are going to kind of emerge. You become responsible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We have families, we have children, and I listened to the Prime Minister this evening emphasizing the need for wholesome, holistic life for the most part for men and boys. And, there's this constant talk of boys. Boys have been at risk for a long time. Last week, there was a big talk about boys and their education, right? And their inability to read. And one of the things that we always emphasize is the fact that our boys that people in general who are undereducated would also be undereducated from a health standpoint. So it is very important that we start fixing it at the bottom of the ladder, where we have boys who must want to read, who must learn to read, and who we must support to read, not just to look at words and say them, but to understand, to be able to repeat what they've read with some common sense, to paraphrase the things they've read, so that they can understand exactly what information is being shared. Do we sit and listen to programs like this with our children, even when when there's a repeat or it happens earlier? Do we make sure boys listen to the news, for example, so they can get accustomed to what words sound like and all the rest? Because at least newscasters are supposed to be able to read clearly, and the news is supposed to be simple enough so everybody can understand. It's almost like doing an editorial. We know that much. So that concern for our boys, and the fact that our boys tend to be at higher risk for other issues like, risky lifestyle. We talk about it, and that attitude to risky lifestyle goes into adulthood and beyond. So drinking, smoking, driving fast, irresponsible sexual practices, you name it, those things that put them at risk. Eating the wrong stuff, poor nutrition, sedentary lifestyle, just that whole lackadaisical stuff can be a challenge. And then there's always a problem of mental health, which we tend to overlook, which is often related to substance use, whether it's alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, whatever it is. There's that. So while that is a problem on its own, it is often related to some more profound mental health problems, right? We look at the level of, look at who is in a prison. Okay? All men are in the prison, and we know that a lot of crime is committed under the influence of something or with people who have mental illness. So there is that need to focus a lot on men's health. There's that need for us to have special policies that develop, from which programs that focus on male gender health, right, are ready and available. Men have the idiosyncrasies. They have the thing about them, what it is about men that they don't go to the doctor. First of all, they're afraid. Second of all, they can't see why not they don't have any pain. Third of all, they're afraid that the environment is not sufficiently confidential, and that's a responsibility that healthcare practitioners have to deal with. And apart from that, they are for the most part, men are still head of households, or they're the ones who are responsible for the household, right? They're the one who bring home the bacon, or a little more bacon than the spouse, than the wife. And they go to work early in the morning, and they're not making time for that because it's still not an essential thing. So are we going to have to start by making sure that mothers take their boys to the doctor and to the dentist, so they see that this is a natural thing? Maybe, right? But we are going to have to put greater emphasis on what is the challenge, what it is about all men that their health status is inferior to that of women. Okay? Why is it that they die before us? Right? Or the men's life expectancy, I think, is 71, while women are 75. And it is high in every population. It therefore means that we actually have a global problem, right? It's a problem across the world dealing with appreciating the fact that our men do not seek health care, while their lifestyles don't necessarily reflect that they know what they're doing. Okay, so that is just to connect it in full, and we can break it down, but that is what it is. And yes, you hear me talking a lot about women encouraging your husbands to go to the doctor. It is going to have to be a collective issue. It's going to have to be something where the whole family, so whole of society, encourage our men to participate in healthy lifestyle and healthy behaviors, most of which should be preventative behaviors. But you can't teach. Maybe we can't teach old dogs new trick. Maybe we need to start again, like I say, with our children, our boys, and our children who learn to appreciate that, hey, going to the doctor is not a big thing. Okay? Are we meeting men where they are? Where are they? Playing football, out in the club, drinking, hanging out with their friend, going out by their other girlfriends, etc., right? So we're gonna have to meet men where we find them congregating a lot. By the shop, where there's some sporting activity occurring, they will sit and watch cricket together or go to a football game together or do stuff that calls for a conference of a confluence of males, of men. Okay? Or boys' schools. We do have boys' school and girls' schools. Are we teaching our boys differently to understand what their health needs are from our girls? And they should, because they are different. Okay? Girls have different problems. Boys have from girls. There's no two ways about it. So we're going to have to streamline our health delivery system to ensure that our men are treated with the attention that they require in order for them to have better health outcomes. Okay? Those are some of the things I want to say in general. We'll go to the areas that I think we can really look at as we proceed.
Yes, indeed. But Doc, so as part of breaking down a lot of these things, and there is a lot, so we can maybe look at some of the main things. Yeah, some of the main areas that are very common. And again, just going back to the doctor I was listening to, one of the things he mentioned was that usually when men go to the doctor, one of the top things on the list is the whole issue of prostate. And yes, it is very important. But he made the point that there are other things that men need to pay attention to. So, for example, like their cholesterol levels, their heart health. A very common thing that is very dangerous, and I learned so much today, some more about it. The whole issue of belly fat. Then there's the issue of erectile dysfunction and so much more. But Doc, I want us to start with the whole issue of some general that's it. Because he concluded by saying that the focus for Men's Health Month should be on preventative health.
As for everybody else, but like I said, I think we need to really streamline our healthcare system to facilitate our men more. I'll tell you what happens. We have clinics. We have lots of clinics in Grenada. 30 clinics, 30 health centers, primary and the local medical stations, right? But we have, some big health centers where you can get multiple interventions, different level of care. You can get your internal medicine, a surgeon might come to visit every so often, the gynecologist may come to visit, and those are the bigger clinics, right? And then you have the little ones where you can go and a nurse is there and a doctor will visit every week for general care. And I know this has been modified, okay? But if you open the clinic at 8 o'clock, and you close it at 4 o'clock, where are men?
Yeah, work.
Right. Or if they go up in the mountain when 6 o'clock in the morning, they go in the garden, right? These men go to the gardens, they land, they have to produce for market 4 days a week. On the fourth day they're reaping, and then the fifth day they're gone in the market, or they're gone and sell, or whatever it is, right? By the time they come out of the land, wherever they okay, so the first thing is, how do we improve the health-seeking behaviors of men? How do they see their lives? I can tell you, I have friends in my other jurisdiction, and every time one of them dead, everybody go to the doctor. I promise you, one of them dead, if the person dies from, even, they expect the person to die, not to mention if the person dies suddenly from a medical condition, everybody goes to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sit down and they start drink again and they party and they forget all about it, right? And is when Tom dead again? And they forget, Lord, it's a year already. The doctor asked me to come back. the question is, and maybe you could ask the men who may call tonight, how do we get you to make a commitment to yourself? So there are some areas. We have organizations like our faith-based organizations where we can encourage our men. There are often health fairs in communities, and a health fair basically is a screening environment, an environment where you go to check on your sugar. You just want to see if anything going on. You get your prostate check, you get your breast check, and men also need to do some breast exams because we can have men with breast cancer. You get your bloods checked, you're screening for diabetes, hypertension. Especially if you know these things run in your family, it is important that you take on the responsibility, because while we're supporting our men, they also have to grow to a stage of responsibility. And like I said, if we start teaching our boys, by the time they become big men, right, it will already be something habitual.
Mm-hmm.
We also, I think, all men can be good advocates for men and good encouragers, right? So we can encourage that to happen. There's a foundation in New York that deals with primary care and disease prevention, okay? Chronic disease prevention particularly. And that foundation meets either women or men, whatever they need. But let's talk about the men. So they do encounters in barbershops. They go to the bars. In the barbershops, a lot of men would go on the weekend. This is the US, a large population, right? The barbers in those shops are encouraged to learn how to do high blood, to check blood pressure, to, you know, instead of going in there and just talking about cricket and, football, or what else happening in the US, football and net basketball, right? They can talk about other things, their handouts. So we have to get creative and see what our environment here in Grenada and elsewhere, because other people are listening. What are the carrots we can put up to encourage men to screen for disease? Because that's the most important thing. Start looking. If I were a man, what will happen? Okay. I want men to think like this. I am a man. What is likely to affect my health? High blood pressure, diabetes, as we grow older, erectile dysfunction, prostate cancer, lung cancer has been happening more, large bowel cancer, okay? And the complications that come with some of these chronic diseases. And of course, there's the issue of dementia. Do I smoke or do I not smoke? Why do I smoke? What do I smoke? How much do I smoke? Do I want to stop smoking? So it's going to have to be a way of how do I think about my lifestyle, okay? You talk about a big belly, where I get the big belly from? Pot belly is. Pot belly means that there's a lot of intra-abdominal fat, which puts you at risk. It also means that your cholesterol may be quite elevated and puts you at risk for issues, things like heart attacks, okay? No two ways about it. It comes from a lifestyle where you really just sit down and you're not very active. And what we eat a lot of carbohydrate foods. We eat a lot of food that promotes our cholesterol becoming elevated. And for those who don't know, cholesterol is the fats we have in our blood. And the fat will just clog up your arteries, clog up your blood vessels, just like how you see in the pipe when you cut an old piece of PVC where the pipe don't really flow hard anymore. All that thing, gunk gathers, come from the fat. It gathers in the lining of those blood vessels and closes off our arteries. What do? We get strokes, right? What do? We get heart attacks. What happens again? We get poor circulation in our feet, okay? Then there's always the issue of diabetes. Diabetes comes with obesity. It comes with a family history. It comes with our poor diet. We eat a lot. We talk about it every single day. We eat a lot of too much of everything, right? So yes, while it's okay to eat breadfruit as opposed to dumpling, or banana as opposed to bread, right? And probably have soy milk as opposed to condensed milk, and those other things, right? Have ordinary fruit juice as opposed to drinking boxed drinks, which have so much sugar, etc. Too much salt, saltfish and smoked herring and pigtail. And this is a culturally appropriate. This is a culturally important point because we eat those things. We need to know how to make choices. The bottom line is that we eat too much. Why would you want to eat a big old plate of oil down at a time when you can eat it in 2 different meals? Okay, unless you're going to get up and be walking, unless you have a job where you or not just a job, the activity in which you're involved makes you cause of burning a lot of energy. Okay, but we have to educate people. It is the responsibility of the public health sector to really educate our men. But we have to find ourselves in places where the men are present and willing to listen. We have to get our men to start screening themselves for prostate cancer. West Indian men have the highest level of prostate cancer known in the world, and they also have the highest rate of death from prostate cancer. And why do you think we have the highest rate of death from prostate cancer? You said it. We don't go to the doctor. Mm-hmm. If we are screening early, looking for it, right? You're not going to die from prostate cancer that's diagnosed very early. No, you're not. Okay? You're not. But if you don't go and check yourself, you will, right? If we don't watch how we consume or what the kind of foods we consume, we will develop obesity and hypertension and diabetes, and we will die as a result of those diseases or the complications that come, namely getting strokes, getting into heart failure, having heart attacks, having kidneys that don't work. And we can't afford, we simply cannot afford what the level, what dialysis costs, okay? We feel a lot of men will not treat their hypertension even if they know, because they think the medications are going to cause their sexual function to become less. And while that is a very important consideration, this is something that you can discuss. Something that you can discuss with your physician. And as physicians, we have a responsibility to explain to people what the costs are. You know, how is that going to cost? What do you give up? What for the other? What are the opportunity costs here? Okay, and of course the medications that you can choose one over the other, right? So that patients don't feel that we're changing the lifestyle they want to live. Okay. We have to make sure that we can educate people appropriately. And that is the responsibility of the whole health team, right? Because we know men hard to get together. So that fundamental thing of looking for disease is one thing. And I can tell you, I do prostate exam for my patients. And after you've done and you convince them, and I'm not convincing, I'm not trying to cajole or try to, outsmart him. I sit with my patient and explain to him why this is important. Why it is important that we screen, that we look out for this, okay? And once he understands, and I explain to him what the process of doing a prostate examination is, and what prostate cancer is, and how we can look for it early and make sure it's not there, and keep on looking and make sure it's not there, and keep on looking. If it appears, we can do what is necessary to ensure that he has the life that he deserves to live. We're good. And after you've done a prostate exam for us, the patient will tell you, that's it. Oh. But how do I tell this man, listen to me, I want you to tell 10 of your friends this, or 5 of your friends. Convince your friends. Because that is one of the ways we're going to have to get the message around to convince our men that they need to participate in health-seeking behaviors. All right? So that is the screening thing. We spoke about confidentiality. That is so very important. Okay? That is so very important. And this is one of the things that all health professionals have to understand, that part of the reason why men do not have the health-seeking behaviors that are required for them to be diagnosed early and to prevent disease is because they don't feel that the information is safe and secure and between me and you and the doorpost. And not even the doorpost, kind of make sure the doorpost can't hear either, right? So that's the other thing. And when disease comes up, we need to support men to understand that, look, let's fix this early. Let's go. This is what's going to have to happen. And you often need to explain a little more. Okay? You often need to explain a little more. Why do I have to do this? What do we do when a patient has diabetes? A lot of people. Mr. What name? Mr. What's your son name? Mr. Godfrey? Guess what? You know you have sugar? All right. You have sugar, so I'm going to give you a prescription, yeah? I'm going to give you a prescription. I want you to take this in the morning, and I want you to take this in the evening, right? And I give you a prescription for a month with 2 repeats, but of course the pharmacy is only going to give you a month. I have not explained to you what diabetes is yet, right? I have not explained that. I have not explained to you why I think you need to go on medications now. I have not explained to you, I probably have even sent you for tests to see how your kidneys functioning, your liver functioning, your eyes doing, blah, blah, blah. All the things that I need to do. When you sit with men, with male patients and explain what needs to happen, they are often understanding and participant in their care. So it's a question of, are we trying to convince men, or are we just complaining that men just don't do it? Inherently, they don't participate. It is our responsibility as healthcare, especially primary healthcare givers, to ensure that men participate, right? And so I give you medication and I send you to your house, and a year later, oh, the church have a health fair. When I come from church, I go and see what them people saying, and you come in, and the doctor or the nurse on duty takes your sugar, and it's 356. You haven't stopped drinking. You drink a lot of beer and sodas and stuff that high sugar. You eat a lot of rice and flour and biscuits and those things that have very high glycemic index, meaning that they make your sugar shoot up once you eat them, right? That's what you live off. Because you're probably single anyway, and you don't feel like putting on pot. Or if you go down by the shop, you buy 2 smoker and roast it and eat a pack of biscuit, right? A pack of Quicks, all right? Now, you come back a year later and your sugar is 356, but think about the damage that has been done in that year. What could we have prevented? Simple communication, especially when you're starting with people who are not informed from the baseline. That is what we're going to have to do. Our men are different, okay? Our men are different and they seek care differently. All right? What do we want to tell them anyway? We want to say, look, you have to have regular checkups and tell them. And we mentioned this in the last half hour, we've been talking about this. You want to have regular checkups. You want to check your sugar. You want to check your pressure and explain to them. They need to ask questions as well. Why do I have to do this? Right? What did your mother die of? I know they say she had a stroke. What did your father die of? I know my father just drank rum and dead. A lot of people tell you that, right? And this is a point where you say, hey, here's what's going to have to happen. We're going to have to look at X, Y, Z. I want to make sure. Is he within his normal weight? A man could be not fat, but he's not healthy because he just drink rum. He have a pot belly that make up for the muscle mass, right? From drinking all this rum. And then he has just very thin muscles because his nutritional state is so poor. Okay? So we want to ensure that baseline is acceptable. You have good health, good weight, your sugar is fine, your pressure is fine. We check your prostate. We look for other forms of cancers that we can do. If you're smoking, which we're going to talk after, we're going to approach that and all the things that can cause you to have challenges. Okay? I encourage a different lifestyle. And I think we also need to ask patients, what is the thing that keeps you from behaving the way you should? Because women will go to the doctor, and they'll talk to their friends when they have emotional problems. Men don't do that. What do men do when they're depressed? We talk about that later, right? So we kind of need to capture in a capsule when the man visits first, and hopefully he will visit for at least one time, all those basic things that he needs to be doing, right? He may come because you already have a problem, and you know that, right? If nothing happens to me, I ain't going to no doctor. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what it is?
Oh, yeah.
But so by the time you have the pain, things really bad. By the time you have the pain, things are so bad that there's very little that can be done. Okay? We hear about, doctor, open this one and cut him and sew him back up and all of those things. That's not what we want for our patients, right? And it's not if you had come yesterday, it's if you were coming before for a long time. So it is important that we encourage people to start going. And that is one of the responsibilities of the workplace. If you want to have a productive staff, you're going to have to encourage your staff to be healthy. A lot of the corporate entities like the banks and stuff encourage their staff to do an annual check. However, one of the challenges I have, a lot of the insurance companies do not pay for annual check. And I cannot figure out why, because I think that's the most important visit. I think that's the way insurance companies will make money, when people get the annual checks and you can identify illnesses early. Okay, so we've done a check. You check your blood sugar levels, you check prostate, I said, and blood sugar level. You also want to check people's teeth, which is a very important part of their general health, their teeth. It's a challenge we have in Grenada with oral care, and as the services improve, because whereas we have relatively good services for prevention for our children, we still have challenges with children with cavities, but people lose their teeth because the public health dental health service only offers, I think, cleaning and extraction. I don't even know if they offer cleaning, but certainly extractions. You can get your teeth come out if your teeth hurt in you. Okay, we have to go beyond that. Okay, because dental care is very, very crucial to the rest of your nutritional care. If you can't chew carrot, you can't digest carrot. If you can't chew up meat, you can't digest meat. You get my drift, right? Mm-hmm. So, what is the other big problem we have? What is probably one of our biggest problems in Grenada? Alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm. Alcohol consumption.
Alcohol consumption. And excessive alcohol consumption. We call it the harmful use of alcohol. I tell you though, interestingly, we always say, oh, you're allowed one drink or two drink, one drink of that, one day every so often. And I have never learned this, because I think all alcohol is bad. Okay? You're allowed, if you can have a drink for your heart. Recent cancer research is showing, even if you drink one drink a week, just consuming alcohol at all puts you at risk for certain cancers. Even if you're having one drink per week, increases your risk. Maybe not as much as if you're drinking a bottle every night, right? But it does certainly increase your risk for having cancers, all kind of cancer. So alcohol has just become like obesity and become a risk factor for almost all of the chronic diseases. Okay? And there are lots of determinants, like commercial determinants. Oh, alcohol is a mainstay of our economy and da-da-da-da-da. It may be so, but we're just saying here, right? Do you know that we in the Caribbean consume 40% of the alcohol that we produce? So what we produce, we export 60%, right? You know how much more money we'd make if we exported 80% or 90%? We export only 60% of what we drink, 40% of what we make. And it's not just what you call under the counter? What you call it?
Yeah, under the counter.
Oh,
Babash,
finally.
Babash.
Not just under the counter and those strong alcoholic beverages like the moonshine that we have and the I'm trying to remember Woodman and the rivers and all the rest that have very strong high alcohol contents. It also includes something like alcoholic beverages, like the ones that have sodas in them and we call them shandies and all the rest of it. Any alcoholic drink, even if you have wine, every alcoholic drink puts you at risk for developing cancer. And that, for me, has been very, very sobering. And we need to tell our men that. We need to also provide facilities. I know they're planning to do the rehab facility up in Maribor, right? At the old nurses thing. It can't come too early. It cannot come too soon, because alcohol is a big problem for us in Grenada and among men in the diaspora. Our men of Caribbean origin, we drink a lot of alcohol. All of us, all genders, but we can't. Concerned certainly that our men are consuming so much alcohol. And why is it, apart from what it does to you, make you put on weight, really decrease your nutritional status, because when you're drinking rum, you don't eat no proper food, okay? You don't get hungry. Rum is sugar, right? So it enhances the development of diabetes, plus it makes it worse. Who do you think have the most amputations? Who do you think have more amputations, men or women?
I
we
think,
see our men all men go up to the ward, go up to the male surgical ward, and you see them lying there, a foot, half a foot, under the knee, above knee, 2 foot. You understand? There is problems because our men drink. That's one of the things that really mitigate the potential for caring for our diabetes. So they already know they have diabetes, but they're still drinking. Or even if they're diagnosed after, right? They're not stop and drink. So we're going to have a space where men find it. When we talk about our children having a safe space to come and say, I'm having X problem, our men are going to have the place where they can feel this is my place, and I feel free to go in there.
Doc, I just wanted to say this. The whole issue, what I notice with a lot of men folk, and you talk a lot about the alcohol consumption, and men drink a lot, but also what goes along with that is that, how should I put it, their freeness in what they consume in terms of food. So you see our men generally, if you pass, for example, by some barbecue place by the roadside, so men consume a lot of that, and together with that they wash it down with the alcohol. So you have a double whammy, and it doesn't help. So it's one thing on top of the other.
What's interesting? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just making that point that, so drinking by itself is a problem. But when you drink, you drink and create that problem, you further complicate the situation with what you consume as food as well.
You brought it up because I was talking to an environmental health person yesterday, and we've been working on this whole cancer portal where we try to put information so people can access to see what the risk is for cancer, how you go about getting screened, blah blah blah. Now, we eat a lot of food that are preserved, right? Ham and bacon and sausage and stuff, right? And then we eat a lot of food that are roasted and fried and with barbecue sauce. That increases our risk multiple times for cancer.
That's the thing. Mm-hmm.
Right? And yet we find it every time you go out there. What do you get? If you reuse those cheap oils, it increases your risk for getting cancer. And that's what, if I out there selling fried chicken, you think I'm changing my oil every set of chicken I fry? No way in hell. And sometimes you pass by the fast food stores where they do fried chicken, and you can smell that this oil really needs to be changed. It has to smell like engine oil. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's so many layers on this, but they're saying, the World Health Organization is saying that the harmful use of alcohol killed nearly 3 million people in 2016. Remember, we weren't looking at it as a contributor to cancers and stuff, right? 75% of the people who died, 75% of those 3 million people were men. They're either drinking too much, they're drinking too often, right? And this causes also the immediate risk for injury, like road crashes and violence, and as well as causing long-term effect like liver damage and cancers, of course we said, and heart disease. We know that if you consume alcohol, even if you don't have hypertension and stuff, it will affect your heart. Makes your heart become very enlarged, and that is also related to poor nutrition, right? And we also know the thing about cirrhosis of the liver, right? Where your liver really becomes rubber, basically, because the liver, and then you get this increased pressure, and then you have large varicose veins in your gullet, in your esophagus, and eventually you have bleeding, and a lot of people die. But sometimes you have liver failure, complete liver failure. The liver has so many enzymes responsible for so many activities in the body that if we damage our liver, there are a lot of things that cannot happen, right? Simple thing as digestion of certain foods, managing your cholesterol, managing your sugar, all of those things are functions that fall within the liver. And storage of glycogen for when you're hungry, blah, blah, blah. If we ablate the liver and make it into a rubber ball, it cannot do that, and it cannot sustain our life. And above all, we're not going to be able to contain our bleeding factors, or coagulation factors, which the liver is very important. But there's another thing about alcohol. Two things. Our mental health. You have seen belligerent men, right? Men that really lose control, that you can't control of. They're not necessarily violent, but they just become nuisances. They chat foolishness to you. They interrupt your normal path. So you'd all sit down, having a beer or playing dominoes, whatever men do when they entertain themselves. But there's this one guy who walks around and he's not necessarily staggering and stuff, but he's just talking foolishness, you know? Or he starts to incite violent behavior because he gets very irritable over nothing and eventually are fighting. And there have been cases where people in this country, people whom I know, have died because everybody drunk and somebody get vexed and one of them stabbed the other on more than one occasion. I've known people who I know personally, right? So alcohol can make you become so disinhibited, right, that you can have those challenges. But that's just, and then of course, we see people who drink too much can develop mental health. Did I tell you? I met a man, I was working in psychiatry, and I met an elderly man who was like 83, always dressed as dapper. I mean, having an Argyle sweaters and him boots shining like a real saga boy, okay? And that he must have been. He was 83 years old and never remembered anything. All he would do is flirt all the female staff. We're good with that, okay? And a young man came to visit him. He was living in a mental hospital. A young man came to visit him one day, and he asked him who he was. And he says, I am Godfrey. Who are you? I'm your son. Really? Oh, you could be my son. How old are you? And the guy says, I'm 46 years old, which is likely, huh? Mm-hmm. He said, I'm 46 years old. He says, boy, you see something wrong with you? How I could be your father? You're 46 years old and I'm 53. This man had lost his memory at the age of 53. Think of the social, the psychological, every impact possible, right, on his family. Okay? Think about how you live in a community with a father who is so very ill as a result of alcohol that he can't function. Okay? He can't live out there. He's been institutionalized for probably all those years. Right? Think of the impact of his children, because that boy would have been a young man, a child, right? When his father became that ill. Think about, he may have had a wife. Think about whether he may have been the breadwinner for that family. And that is just alcohol. Right? So while he is unwell mentally and unprepared to take of himself, it also has this negative impact. And we know the level of abuse that occurs and violence that occur in a family when you have alcoholics. Husband comes home, make noise, mash up everything. I remember this guy who would come home in the night, and even if his wife left dinner on the table, he'd pelt bottle and mash up glass, and she has to clean it, and she's there. And I'm going to say, girl, come out of this foolishness, right? And then he'd be nice and gentle the next day. And then he'd curse for the whole night, and you have to get up and go to work 7 o'clock in the morning, right? So, and think about the children. He'd come home, he'd wake them up, he'd beat them, and all the rest of it. Those are very difficult things to have to deal with. And guess what? They are preventable. Right? They are preventable. Right? We talk about drinking responsibly. There's no responsible drinking except not drinking. There is no responsible drinking except not drinking. All right? We have to understand it. You look at people, a lot of our men, and adult men, come off the boat, on a cruise, a moonlight cruise, and that's fine. They're so drunk they walk like cockroaches over to their cars and get into their cars and drive. And drive long distances. And maybe we have special angels on the road in Grenada, because the foolishness I see people do, I'm surprised that more of us do not die on the road or become more maimed. There's more damage to the human form on the road. So alcohol is one of the biggest problems we have. And what is the problem with alcohol? It is so very available and relatively affordable. We come into the season of carnival, and I wish our men would really consider how much alcohol they will contain. I've been looking at the jab groups. I would keep my comments about the jab intact, but everybody has a glass, and everybody seems semi-inebriated or drunk on a Sunday morning, right? And I'm not telling people not to have fun, but alcohol becomes a center, and companies will, of course, sponsor these events because they get their products sold. That is a problem we're having, and we are going to have to address the problem of alcohol consumption among our men and among our boys who grow into alcoholic men, right? And in order to preserve their life, because it's costing us too much. It's costing us young men, relatively young men with amputations. It's costing us men who should be productive in our community being unable to produce because they have diabetes and they have blind because of the sugar. They don't go to the doctor. They don't follow themselves. And every time they go to the hospital, they lose another part of their body. We're going to have to find a way to contain the consumption of alcohol.
Doc, one additional thing, and we mentioned, of course, the drinking of the alcohol, the eating of all sorts of things. And we drink, we eat, we do these things. What about what we don't do? As men, we don't exercise. So the beer...
That's one of the points I'm going to speak to at the bottom.
The beer bellies come into place, and then it's... You get to the point of no return.
And you really can't separate one thing from the other. We're just trying to do it for information purpose, to amplify the information. It's become very fashionable again for us to smoke. Tobacco use, and sadly, tobacco use among our young population, both male and female. So we're talking about the 20-25, that age group, right? But tobacco, the nicotine in tobacco is very addictive. Right? It's not nicotine that's going to cause you to have cancer. Nicotine is going to be addictive and make you smoke the tobacco that have all the other things. But apart from that, nicotine hardens your arteries. Right? You hear about all the anti-inflammatory processes and stuff, but it's by this one thing. It stiffens the arteries so you don't have a lot of exudation of fluids into the tissue and all the rest of it. But hear me. If you're smoking, it's very difficult. It's actually easier to stop drink than it is to stop smoke. It's easier to stop drink alcohol than it is to stop smoke. Okay? Tobacco use, we know, causes cancer. It causes cancer, all form of cancer. Every cancer you can think about, tobacco is a contributing factor, right? Lung disease, meaning not just lung cancer, but things like atelectasis, where you have collapsing of the tissue, what about the damages that you have? Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, where you have the airways just not working properly. And you see the people with these hyperinflated chests, right? Because they're trying their best, right? The lung is trying to increase the capacity, but there's so much damage already done to the lung, to the airways and stuff, right? And of course, strokes. It does contribute, because guess what? If tobacco is the nicotine in tobacco is going to narrow your and that is why we can have challenge with our tongue, we can have challenge with our bowel action, we can have challenge with our hair, with our skin, right? we can have strokes because those small vessels in your brain are important for feeding, for getting oxygen and nutrients into very, very far spaces in your brain. You clog up the arteries, you lose all of that. Brain tissue is going to die very soon if it doesn't get the nutrients and oxygen it needs. So we know that smoking will do that. If you continue smoking, it's going to happen. And so 8 million people, more than 8 million people across the world, and this is probably 2016 data, so you know it's more now, okay, are killed every year as a result of smoking. Oh, and by the way, impotence, the inability to get a proper erection, is one of the challenges that we have, because in order for a man to have an erection, he must have sustainable and a satisfactory amount of blood flowing into the penis so it gets erect, okay? If the vessels are narrowed or because of, they stricture, they can't expand because of tobacco, you're not going to get a proper erection. And if you get one, it's not going to last very long, okay? So quitting smoking is one of the best things we can do for us. They say within 2 to 12 weeks of having stopped smoking, your lung function improves. Right? And within a year, the risk you have for having heart disease and other disease is already half of that of smokers. So the more you don't smoke, the more you get towards well. Do you understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if you smoke 1 week, you're at a certain point. When you haven't smoked for 12 weeks, you're almost halfway there, right? But it's difficult. So another thing we are going to have to do, if we want men to stop smoking, we are going to have to provide smoking cessation programs, and they're available that we as caregivers and I think as a public health from the government we are going to have to establish smoking cessation programs for our men. Okay? Mm-hmm. Tobacco is expensive. How do we contain tobacco sales? Because you can increase taxes, and therefore the cost goes up, etc. Right? And it has happened, and in populations where tobacco has been taxed, the consumption of tobacco has decreased. In places where sugar-sweetened beverages have been taxed, the consumption has decreased. So we know that we have ways to deal with that we can deal with this. All right, let's go to nutrition. And we've taken it. We kind of spoken about it, right? But how many of our men actually have a breakfast in the morning, a meal? I'm not saying to have a big pot of whatever, right? Or have something how many of our men know exactly what a nutritionally balanced meal is? How many of our men have a protein, greens, fruits and vegetables, and some carbs for the thing? That's not how it is. If you see a plate of oil down, or even when we cook, fig and saltfish sauce, right? We have a hint of saltfish, 6 grains of fig, 2 dumplings, a slice of yam, a slice of breadfruit, right? And so our nutrition is in balance. We have to make sure that we can eat healthy to prevent disease. You talk about big belly, it also comes not only from alcohol, but from not exercising, which you're going to talk about after. And also it comes from having, from the amount that we eat. And like I said, we like the fried food and the fat pigtail and the pork rinds and a lot of stuff that we eat that are not necessarily. And it's probably okay if you have it one time in a party, but for a lot of us, it is a lifestyle. This is how we eat. Boy, I grew up eating like that. But when you're 12 years old, you used to be running up and down, and 20 years ago, that is. Everybody was up and down, walking to school, walking up to convent, walking over to Palmer School, wherever you're going, wherever you live in the country, you walk to school in the morning. You drive through the country, you don't see kids walking to school anymore. Everybody takes a bus, or their parents drop them to school. There's no children on the roadside. So you see all the mango and all the plum and stuff on the tree by the roadside that fall on the ground and rot. Nobody has them, right? So it is important that our men know that they should consume more fruit, that they should consume more vegetables and legumes like peas. And I know people eat a lot of lentil when they do eat peas, but we plant peas every year. We should plant enough peas that we can have peas throughout the year. So even once a week, we can cook peas, right? When you have peas, we eat it all off, and we don't have, after a while there's none, right? But also eating nuts and whole grains. We love rice, but we don't like brown rice. We like
Polished,
white rice that is washed and all nutrition, and we eat a whole calabash full of white rice with a hint of meat on top of it. And you probably twist a little piece of lettuce on the side so you don't look so Caucasian, right? But the truth is, we have to balance our food and make our food look pretty with the vegetables that we have. And we have, see this rain falling? Watch our vegetables proliferate. Watch everything grow. Plant an okra tree, you can get 6 okra a week. 1 okra tree. Do you understand? We have to get accustomed to doing this stuff. Planting back. Who is going and pick mangoes and have an orange tree in the bush that they go after, or get whatever fruits there are? We are going to have to. When was the last time you had a plum rose? There was a plum rose?
I haven't. Yeah, I do know, but I haven't.
When was the last time you had a water lemon?
Not long ago, you know. Actually, there's one of those vines.
There are young people who don't know what that is. I can tell you. I showed them and I said, what is that? Right? And those are things that you can go and pick, and children sit and have it. And, a man would come from the bush and he picked 2 water lemon or 2 plum roses on his way down. That doesn't exist anymore, right? Because people don't have that kind of interest. And so we're going to have to expand what a plate looks like, right? The other thing is the salt consumption. And we've spoken about this ad nauseum, because we've spoken about this almost every time we talk about chronic disease, the amount of salt we consume. And the salt is often related to the salt that we add, right? You shouldn't have, in 24 hours, all the food you consume should not have more than 1 teaspoon of salt. All the food. And when you consider that a lot of the foods we buy, because we buy ready-made foods, so we're going to buy a tin of corn, right? Or we buy a soft drink, which has soda, which has sodium, right? Almost all the food, because sodium or salt, the salt we know, contains sodium. And the sodium is used for that sodium chloride that we use which is a form of sodium we use, is used for not only for flavor, but also for preservation. Mm-hmm. But we've gotten accustomed to eating such high levels of salt, right? What does it do? Make our arteries get hard and make our pressure go up. Okay? Sugar also, we consume, everything is sweet. All the drinks we drink, nobody will drink water as their only beverage. We've been struggling to get our children. And when our children stop drinking sodas, because that's going to have to happen, when they stop drinking the quantity of sodas they have, because it has shown, studies have shown that our children drink on an average of 4 sodas a day. So I'm trying to figure out who's drinking my soda, because I don't drink sodas. I have a soda once in a while. Why are our children drinking 4 sodas a day? Each soda contains about 27 grams, right, of sugar per serving. And that's just, you're not even counting that. So we're going to have to, as children and as we grow into adult, contain the amount of sugar we have and the amount of sugary foods, right? So it's not just putting sugar in your tea. The other things you eat, right? The other stuff, the things we eat otherwise that have a lot of sugar. And remember that starches also that break down into basic glucose, the fundamental sugar. So we have to get that information out to our men that, yes, you're consuming too much sugar. I drink a drink, and then, of course, alcohol is sugar. What it takes to make alcohol rum? Sugar, right? So we have to be able to emphasize to our men, and they have to learn these things. Each one has a responsibility for his own health, right? And, of course, the fats that we consume, right? We talked about that. The pigtail and the chicken. I was listening to a pediatrician speak about the challenges our children have with obesity. And she spoke to the problem of the consumption of chicken. This is a pediatrician probably from Australia. And she talked about, when your mother have a fall in the yard, right? It probably go up to like 3-4 pounds, right? But that's in 6-8 months, right? When it becomes an adult foal, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, in 6 weeks, you can have that same chicken in a coop, giving him highly hormonalized foods, right? And that chicken gets to be 7-8 pounds in 6 weeks. And we give that to our children. And so they get all the hormones, and the girls get a lot of menstrual irregularities, right? We see our children getting fat because that's going to stimulate fat production in your body, right? And one of the things that she said that I hadn't recognized, we talk about trans fats, which are going to make your cholesterol get high, which contribute to cholesterol development. And that the level of trans fats in these chickens that are chemically induced big chickens, right? The level of saturated fat, which we don't contain because we don't measure it. You just go and buy chicken in the store, right? Whereas we can measure it in oils and the other foods, the other simple foods. In the chicken, there's all this trans fats. And so children are predisposed, and all people who eat chicken are predisposed to having very high levels of trans fats, which translate into cholesterol. Cholesterol being the fats in our blood that are going to clog up our arteries and make us die.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so the other thing we need to look at, how active are our men? Godfrey, when was the last time you played football?
No,
I heard you an athlete.
I was involved in football. I played cricket. I played I was into track and field, but not football. Football was one of my favorite games.
When was the last time you played cricket?
A little while.
Okay, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but what I'm saying to you.
No, you can. No,
but I want us to think about it. So you're a middle-aged man. Do you remember when you were a young man, come from school, and even you go and you get your, football, your cricket bat, whatever it is, right? Your basketball, everything, and you go and run, you run an hour, 2 hours, you play, or if you're a jogger.
I'll tell you.
Oh, men don't do that. Not very many men of men do this.
I'll tell you what we did. So I lived in Tivoli, and I went to SAS in Telescope. So after school, we probably left, sometimes we left our books, depending on what we had the following day, in our desk, and we walked up. Sometimes we jogged.
Nobody allows their children to walk home anymore.
Well, I mean, it's a little dangerous on the road as well. You have to be very careful what is going on. So we did quite a lot. On weekends, we went to the beach, we ran, we swam, very active. And you had garden.
Yeah. And your parents had garden.
Yeah, we had a little thing around the house that we did. But you see, and I was making the point earlier that with all that we consume now as men, the barbecue and the fried chicken and the French the fries and all of that, together with the bears and all of that, and we put on those pongs around the stomach, and we don't exercise.
Yeah, and we talked about how those pongs are very dangerous.
Well, actually, indeed, because I was looking, like today I did quite a bit of reading on men's health, with all of these kind of thing that, on the discussion for this evening. And on the same issue of the belly fat, there was something that let me get it here quickly. Right. So they were saying here that, come on, where are you? Right. The trouble with belly fat is that it's not limited, and I think you made reference to that as well. It's not limited to the layer of padding just below the skin. That's called subcutaneous fat. Belly fat also includes visceral fat. And
that's around the organs.
Yes. And that's it. And it's dangerous. So, and he wanted to say, regardless of a person's overall weight, having a large amount of belly fat raises the risk of, and you mentioned quite a number of them, high blood pressure, an unhealthy amount of fat in the blood, sleep apnea, heart disease, high blood sugar and diabetes, certain cancers, stroke, fatty liver, early death from any cause. Now that is frightening. You know, so there are a number of things, and we need to start taking stock of you know our behavioral patterns in terms of what we consume, what we drink, you know, what we do, what we don't do. It is concerning. It is concerning.
So I tell you one of the things that I see, and I wish we'd extend it, because when carnival season comes, our men become very visibly active. They're out there dancing and prancing and who play jab. But we're asked to do 2.5 hours of moderate intensity activity per week. We should probably, like you say, walking from one place to the other, even walking around the office. You know, people work in the middle of town and want to go over to Hubbard's and they drive all the way around in traffic for 40 minutes when they could walk under the tunnel in 3 minutes and walk back in the next 3 minutes or 5-10 minutes. You know, we don't walk, we don't become active. You have stuff to do, you drive. There's nowhere to put your car, but you get up and you drive. Drive to go where? Where do you put your car when you go? Unless you're Mary Poppins and can fold it and put it in your bag, right? And what comes with that is frustration, okay, and anxieties. And everybody vexed with everybody else on the road, and there's road rage, and one thing spills off the other. When we can actually walk and become a little more, you know, build up camaraderie, do other things with other people, contain our emotions, and we're going to talk about mental health. But I want to know that physical activity helps us to maintain a healthy weight, right? As we talk about the belly, but it also reduces the risk of heart disease. It reduces the risk of strokes, diabetes, cancer, and above all, it can help us to contain or to make our emotions better. You feel a lot better about yourself when you're exercising. Okay?
Oh yeah.
We feel a lot better about ourselves when we're exercising.
But even when you eat a healthy meal, you feel good. You know, so there are a lot of things that we can do, you know, and maybe Doc, we should consider bringing in Mrs. Brown, you know, on the next program to talk a little bit about.
The next program we're talking about sickle cell, just for a thing. Remember, it's a sickle cell month too.
So you know that there's a lot that we need to do.
We have a next week after that. So hear me now, and I don't want us to forget this because I think this is very important. One of the challenges that we have in relation to men's health is the issue of mental health, which is not looked in the face. What do men do when they get depressed or they have any challenges? What do they turn to?
RUM.
They often RUM.
Ruin unto man.
Ruin the man?
Ruin unto man.
Ruin unto man. So they turn to alcohol, and might not just be just straight up rum, but they drink because it numbs the sensation, the emotions. Again, we're going to have to provide a safe space for men. I know some companies have employee assistance programs, very few, not as much as is needed, but there has to be a place because you know that depression in men is more likely to end in death than depression in women. Men are more likely to end their lives, right? Because of emotional depression, that level of emotional instability than men. So sometimes we get rough and we don't understand why is it that men turn to alcohol, turn to drugs, turn to whatever it is. And I don't understand that depression is a disease that occurs in 1 in 4 of us across our lives, across the lifespan, right? And that adult men are more likely not only to have depression, but also to die from depression. right? But also there are other mental illnesses like schizophrenia. And who is still living on the streets? Don't you see the men living on the streets? Our families abandon us when we have mental illness, or we abandon the males. How many people up in the mental hospital with mental illness? One mental illness break and your family abandons you. We're going to have to extend even more. First of all, look out for mental illness in men. So schizophrenia, for example, tends to occur earlier in men, in the males, than in the females. So a boy may start showing signs of change from adolescence, 14, 15, 16. By 17, 18, he already shows full sign of schizophrenia. But I want to also make us know that there is a problem with adolescents and the consumption of cannabis, marijuana. Marijuana is known to allow for the manifestation, in others, make it show schizophrenia even more than people who don't use it. So you as a boy may have a predisposition. There's always a possibility because you've had mental illness in your family, but you don't smoke, you don't drink, you don't have that factor to trip you off. However, the boys who smoke marijuana, if they're at risk for developing schizophrenia, are more likely to develop schizophrenia. You get you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, very much so.
If you are at risk for developing schizophrenia as a boy, everybody, but as a boy in particular, because he's speaking about males, you don't necessarily have to have schizophrenia, but if you're smoking weed, the possibility of you showing signs of schizophrenia. And schizophrenia is that disease where you have mental illness in which you lose your touch with reality. You become isolative, you have no interest in things, you just cannot, what we call a cognitive understanding of life and being able to relate to life, those abilities are lost. Unfortunately, the earlier you get schizophrenia, the longer it is likely to last. The more you are likely to progress to a chronic state. And sometimes we fail to recognize schizophrenia simply because, it's just too much weed he's smoking, while the poor young guy is standing there having thoughts to himself, talking to people that we can't see, and all the rest, he smoked too much weed. When in truth and in fact, what he has done is gone over the threshold and started manifesting symptoms of schizophrenia. All right? Those are the things we have to look out for. And of course, there's always bipolar illness, and there are also a multiplicity of other illnesses that related to our behavior, related just to behavior, that we have to consider and have to look out for in our men. Okay? So it's not easy because our men do not go for care. Or we tend to think, your boy can handle that. We're going to have to create a space and facilities and empathetic healthcare providers. And men are going to have to take the chance and go there and trust people in order for us to live, for them to live longer. Don't be afraid to ask your physician questions. And we get concerned about things like schizophrenia. Like erectile dysfunction, okay? Right? Inability to have an erection because it affects part of your life. When the truth is, you might not have an erection simply because your cholesterol is too high and clogging all those blood vessels. You're smoking too much or you're drinking too much, right? You have diabetes that is undiagnosed and a lot of other illnesses. So I wish we can help our men by getting information to them, and especially if men talk to men. I think that's one of the greatest ways for information, because when men talk to men, they convert. When men talk to men, they accept. Yeah, I need to do this. Okay? So we have to create a space where men will not be afraid to ask about how well I am. Can I get myself better? Can you keep me well? How do I stay well? How do I fix this? How do I live long? How do I maintain my productive status? How do I maintain the relationship in my family, the relationship with my partner, my spouse, my colleagues, my children, right? By not drinking and using other substances. How do I stay on what we'll probably consider straight and narrow, but straight and narrow can be nice. It can be fun. It can, can engage in other forms of entertainment. How do I do all of this? And it's very important that we support our men and our men allow themselves to be supported. And sometimes we just kind of push them in a corner too, I must admit. And that is not the approach. We have to have an approach of compassion, right? And understanding and knowledge whereby our men can be guided to be being healthy beings and the productive leaders they're required to be in this country.
Indeed. Doc, I'm glad you mentioned all this, and I wanna add something here which I think is so very important, because we have this problem that we have to address, but we have to ensure that it doesn't continue. Now, it's similar to the whole issue of climate change. We have to address the climate change issue by doing a number of things. But if we don't do what we're supposed to do, we would forever be having to deal with that problem. And I think it's so important because one of the things that needs to happen, and early in the program you made reference to it, the issue with boys and why boys are not excelling and all of that. We need to find a way to ensure that our young boys take their education seriously. Because if it continues the way it's going, the problem that we have will continue. Because our boys would get to a point where they're not able to exercise good judgment, their analytical ability will be very poor, and they will end up in these situations where they drink too much, they eat the wrong thing, they don't exercise, and then we are faced with a serious health problem among our male population. So I think it's very, very important that we look closely at the education of our young boys to ensure that they develop, that their cognitive ability is well developed so that they can make good decisions.
So they can make good men. That's what we need. If we build in a country, we're going to need to have strong men. The women can't do everything on their own. And men have, I don't worry half as much when I have a female patient as when I have a male patient, because a male patient needs a lot more support. Mm-hmm. And also, I see males as being so important to our country. We still live in a patriarchal society, although the women run it.
Yes,
okay?
we do.
So we expect men to function at a higher level. And we have to support them to do that. We have to encourage them to do that. We have to enlighten them that this is your responsibility, and here's how we can help you. We expect them to do things without them even understanding. Really? What you talking about? Right? We want to have a society where our men are strong, emotionally, mentally, where our men are educated, as you've been advocating, and where our men are well, where men are physically and mentally well to take our country forward.
You see, and that's the point, Doc. And if that is not instilled from a very young age, we would have this males growing up to always be, look, we have to tell, as you said, the lady had to tell him what to do and what not to do. That should not happen. Men should be in a position where, because of their education level, they can make good decisions. They can exercise good judgment. Not every time somebody says something you don't agree with, you have to fight. And that starts at a very young age. And I worry that we are not in a good place where this is concerned. You driving to work in the morning at 7 o'clock and you see young men, teenagers, maybe early 20s, sitting by the road, smoking weed or drinking rum. That says one thing.
Bottle of beer.
That says one thing, that when it comes to the education, nothing. And that is a problem. So we probably need to get to the
set with that, and we had a lot of challenges last year and the year before, 2023 and 24, with violence.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes with making incorrect decisions. The same cognitive ability that would lead us on the right path, right? And yeah, we can create an economically and socially sound environment. If people don't recognize it, they will step into areas that are unsavory.
Mm.
So regardless of how much education a boy has, right? He is going to make bad choices if there's not proper guidance. It means that our men are going to have to be exemplary. They're going to have to mentor young men, right, into serious, responsible. Because responsibility is one of the things that have to come in here.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to lead our men into serious and responsible young boys, young men. Right? And they're going to have to lead by example, because you can't tell me what to do if you don't live like that. You can't tell me I'm drinking too much rum with me and you drinking together.
That's the point. And it's sad. You see it not. I mean, even you look at some of this morning, Doc, I was driving down, and there is a bus stops. Now, so there are some vehicles behind the bus, and it stops. I saw the door open because we go in opposite directions. So he's coming up, I'm coming down.
To be very, very intimately related to the education of our young men.
Mm-hmm. So and what happened then? So. I saw him making a signal. I'm not sure what he was doing, but what I did pick up was that the door was open. So I wasn't sure if someone was going to go around the back of the bus and enter the road. So I immediately was on guard. So I slowed down, and he's angry. He got angry. So there's a line of vehicle behind you. Your bus door is open. I'm not sure.
I've lost you. I can't hear you.
Oh boy, I'm not sure what happened here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you are angry because I slowed down because I'm not sure what you are doing or what is it you're trying to indicate to me, and it shows the analytical ability of some of our men. I just don't get it. So we have a major task on our hand.
Oh, I've lost you.
Yeah, we have a task on our hand with our young men, and we need to put in some work there. We need to put in some work.
It's going to we're going to have to have a lot of tolerance and do a lot of education, because you can get angry very easily. I can tell you, as a female driver on the road. As a female driver, I face abuse every day. I face people telling me that I can't drive, and then I simply ask them, "How old are you?" That I've been driving from long before you were born, long, right? And I haven't had accidents. And they tell you stuff, and they insult you, and they tell you bad words.
And that's
some of which I know better than I know as much as they do, but I don't bother to engage.
And that's the problem.
And it comes from a young man where there's a breakdown, where they have respect for nobody, where they and you look at it, and these are the guys who really need to be cared for. The eyes need to be open. They need to learn to take better care of themselves, and all the rest of it.
And that's the thing,
is that they probably grow into older men who are just as belligerent and stupid, that are not going to be able to do anything for our country.
And sick. Because it spills over into different facets. So, we have work to do. Doc, we've gone out of time with the discussion. Yes, in fact it is exactly
what time it is.
It's exactly 10 o'clock. So we have to wrap here. But of course, folks, we continue the discussion. There's always so much to talk about, so much information to share, and we will be back next Tuesday to continue sharing information. Doc, thank you so very much.
We're going to talk about sickle cell, because it's sickle cell month and sickle cell day is the 19th.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we want to talk about sickle cell next week. So hopefully we'll have somebody from from the Sickle Cell Association or somebody who's been living with sickle cell who can tell us of their trajectory and be able to learn about the services that the Sickle Cell Association offers. But I want to remind people that it's still, it's hot. There's a lot of Sahara dust. Please wear your mask. I stepped out of my house this morning, and by the time I went on the 7th treader to my car, my nose was tickling all day because there's just so much dust. If you have asthma, please take your medication, especially take your brown inhaler, because it's going to contain the inflammation in your chest. Please make sure you wear a mask. We got accustomed to wearing masks from 2020, and we didn't die from wearing masks. Remember that. As a matter of fact, some of us lived because we wear a mask.
Yeah.
Boil your water, because the river and the pipe can get... even the water that looks clean is not. If you let the water settle, we get surface water. There's just so much Sahara dust in the air that the water becomes brown. So I'm going to advise you to still boil your water, let it settle, and then you can skim what's at the top to avoid drinking all of that dust that's in the air. Put the rest out in the garden, because I hear Sahara dust can help you as fertilizer. Right?
Yes,
keep active, still keep active. It's hot, so make sure your children have enough fluids. Make sure that your older people in your home have enough water to drink during the day, and there's proper ventilation. Even the nights are a little hot, but make sure that we rehydrate properly. And soda is not a rehydration fluid. Water will help you. Please do not give your children sodas. Let us stop giving our children sugar-sweetened beverages, especially those little pretty packets that you pay really for the packet, because the sugar and water that in there you could do home for 5 cents.
Right. Doc, and while, yes, it's important to pay attention to the heat, we're now in the hurricane season. In fact, we do expect to be impacted a little bit by a tropical wave sometime tomorrow. So I just want to also urge people to, pay attention, make sure that you're protected, make sure that you have proper drainage around your home so that the water you have easy runoff, and do what you're supposed to do. It's a good time to probably secure all your important documents.
And your documents.
Yes, you may need them if something happens, and of course, natural disasters can impact your health. So please be careful and do what needs to be done. Doc, thank you so very much again for being here.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Yes, and we look forward to being back next Tuesday with another Doctor on Call. Don't forget, join me tomorrow evening. It's Kaiso Talk, and tomorrow we'll be talking to the musicians. So it promises to be another interesting one. Have a good night and be safe.
We announced plans for a political comeback.
Measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer,